Christy Jordan.
And I'm Elisa DeSalvo.
And this is NeuroPath Living. In this show, Elisa and I share our hearts and strategies on how we navigate living in the world while not being of the world, learning how to walk in the footsteps of Messiah in modern day America.
So come join us as we share our hearts, our lives, and the lessons we're learning along the way while seeking to be hearers and doers of the Word of God. The path may be narrow,
but you never truly walk it alone. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of NeuroPath Living. I'm Christy Jordan.
And I'm Elisa DeSalvo.
And in this episode, we are going to talk all about Passover, keeping Passover. Many of you watching have been keeping Passover for years, but a lot of you are keeping it probably for the very first time, or you may even be trying to decide if you know enough about it to keep it for the first time this year. So we hope that this episode will answer some of your questions and really encourage you that you don't have to know everything to go ahead and keep this feast if your heart is set on honoring the Father in this way.
Right.
So first of all, we're going to go a little deeper in this. But first of all, I want to explain to you, we're going to talk a little bit about what Passover has looked like at our house in the past. I think this is my 5th or 6th year keeping Passover. And Lisa, how many years have you been keeping it?
I think this is our 12th.
12. So Elisa's the pro here. I'm still the amateur, but she and I were talking earlier that we're always learning. We learn new things every year. And I will tell you, for Ricky and I, Passover has been a very big learning experience for us. And it has definitely drawn us much closer to the Father. Anytime we keep the feast, they're really set up as teaching tools. And so it teaches us more about his character, about our spiritual ancestry, how he views our relationship with him. It helps pull us closer to him. And then it also teaches us about the future that is to come when our Messiah returns. So for a lot of people, when you think of Passover, you tend to think of a traditional seder like our beloved Jewish brethren have. My house, if you were to come to Passover at my house, we've been to a traditional seder once. It was a very it was a Messiah-centered seder. It was really all about Jesus. So it was a different than the traditional ones that our Jewish brethren did. We read from a program called the Haggadah, which Elisa and I pronounce the same way. So we're either both getting it right or both messing it up. But it was a more traditional one. Now, if you were to come to Passover at my house, you're going to see what essentially looks like a big Southern family dinner. Only instead of like biscuits and cornbread, we've got unleavened bread. We're going to have, all kinds of wonderful sides. I have a big salad for the bitter herbs. I usually have cream corn. I don't know why we just do. We have mashed potatoes. I mean, we have this whole big, it looks like a big Southern spread. And you will see us reading the Bible. We read the Exodus story of the Passover, and we talk about the Father. And it's just it's a very God honoring meal for us. It's a very Yahweh honoring meal at our house. And we have a really good time. We really focus on the kids and making sure that they understand the story and understand why we do this. Elisa has some wonderful ideas for involving your kids in Passover. And that's pretty much how it's always looked like at my house. Elisa, what about you? What does it look like at your house?
We have done that. We've done it. We've kind of done it all. We've followed we've had a traditional Seder meal, and we've also had the big Southern meal. It just depends on who's with us as to what we want to do. Like last year, we just had a really great big Southern meal. And in case you didn't know, I'm from Texas. So Christy and I are both having Southern meals.
She's from Texas. I'm from Alabama.
I enjoy all the different methods, but you're right. So kid-centered is really a great way to go. There are games you can play to help kids, enjoy the meal, because sometimes they're really long, especially if you're following a traditional Seder. So it's fun to involve the children, but we've done it all and we've enjoyed all of it. So you can do anything you want. Well,
now I do. When we first kept Passover, I made it a point not to do traditions, to read the Bible, see what is in the Bible, and do that,
Right.
because we were new to reading the whole Bible. We had been believers our whole lives, but we didn't know that these feasts existed because we had never read the Father's word in its entirety. And we had been told they were Jewish feasts. So when we started reading that Bible and saw what the Father said, we saw that he says, these are my feasts. And
Right.
he's given instructions to his people to keep these feasts as a means of honoring him. And we realized, oh, this means us. I wanted to make sure that I knew that however I did it that year, our kids saw us reading the Bible and trying to do what it said. So however we did it that year, the kids would think, okay, this is how the Bible says to do it. And so I was very mindful of traditions, because I knew that despite my best efforts, I was going to basically, if any traditions we kept, I was going to be teaching them to my kids as if they were commandments. I may not have said they
Right.
were commandments, but my kids are going to think, okay, this is the prescribed way that we have to do it. And I'm
Right.
always really sensitive to that because of what Messiah said. He said, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, teaching
Hmm.
as commandment the doctrines of men. And so he
Right.
condemned that. So I wanted to make sure that, even though I wasn't actually teaching, I wouldn't have been teaching them as commandment, because of my position in their lives, they would have seen it that way. So
Right.
we tend to avoid a lot of traditions because of that. Now that we've been doing it for several years, we will sit and talk about it. Hey, do you want to do this year? Do you want to do this year? Ricky and I sit down and we've already started having Passover discussions about how we want to do Passover this year. And we've actually decided this year we're going to kind of reenact the first year that we kept Passover, where my sister and her kids come over, and we're going to have a big meal. We're going to tell the story of the Passover, and just spend a lot of wonderful time together as a family, discussing the Father, all that he has done for us, how far we have come on this journey in the past several years. And just really, it's an evening to honor him and just be grateful and just be aware of how he's redeemed us through our Messiah.
I think
So
that's
it's
wonderful. It
still gonna look
sounds
like a Southern meal
wonderful.
though.
Well, our traditions really are more about food,
Hmm.
than the
That's
four
true.
cups and those kinds of things. It's really more about the food. I try really to only make certain foods with certain feasts so that people
Hmm.
look forward to it. My family really looks forward to unleavened bread pizzas.
We do too. We love, I love the brown sugar Cinnasticks unleavened bread. I make
Yes.
that. I love that. They call it Passover pizza.
Yep.
Um, we also make this, it's just a really weird grilled cheese sandwich that I made with matzah and soaked in grape juice. It's a long story. Um, but we do a lot of traditional things, and I will only make those things at Passover. We also love making
Right.
homemade tortillas. Those are a lot of fun during that as well. But we need to talk
Hmm.
a little about, now that we've explained to y'all that Passover can be very formal. It can be anything from a formal seder like our Jewish brethren do, to just
Right.
a big family meal. We're going to explain to you a little bit more about what the Father says and how to reading in the word what he actually says to do. I have always said that, the Father's instructions are very simple, but we're the ones who make them complicated. Now, if you
Absolutely.
want to stick with more traditions are a beautiful thing. And so there's a lot of them that are very beautiful traditions. And if you do a traditional Jewish Seder, it does make it easier to make sure you've kept all the commandment, you've done the Passover perfectly. I am mindful about, sometimes you come across a prayer and it'll say, it'll mention that like the Father commanded us to do it this way or something. If it
Right.
doesn't say that in the Bible, I omit that from the prayer.
Me
Just
too.
like sometimes on Shabbat, we will light candles for our meal, for a
Hmm.
Shabbat meal. Sometimes we don't. There is a traditional prayer that is often said on Shabbat that says the Father commanded us to kindle the light of the
Oh
candles on
yeah. To
Shabbat.
light. Yeah.
Not in the Bible, so I would just
Nope.
skip that line in the prayer. you know.
Yeah. We do
So
too. We just skip it.
yeah, there's other things you can say, and I just don't want
Absolutely.
to. I won't want to put words in his mouth. So where we get the actual instructions for the Passover Now, Leviticus 23 is always your go-to for any of the Father's feast, the biblical feast. And I will have, if you want a lot of this information we're sharing, I do have a whole series of posts on the Passover, and you can go to seekingscripture.com/Passover to find kind of the hub for all things Passover on Seeking Scripture. And I'll put that link below as well. But we read in in Exodus 12 is where we read of the Passover for the first time. And so that's where we want to go. Every year before we keep Passover, we go and read this again. And there's a very important reason for that. You know, you ever notice how you'll read the Bible and you know you've read this passage so many times in your entire life, but you'll come to a point where you read it and you see something that you've never noticed before. So the Father
Yes.
teaches us in layers, right?
Yep.
Elisa noticed something. Did you noticed it? What year was it? Last year?
Yeah, I think it was last year.
And she mentioned it to me, and me and Ricky were talking about it the other day, and both of us, we've never noticed it before.
Yeah.
So this is another reason why you want to read it every year. Elisa, do you want to read Exodus 12, and then you can, and we'll get into what you noticed this year. We'll talk about exactly what Exodus 12 tells us to do that we can do. You know, because there's some things in that we can't do. We don't have the ability to do now, but never let what you can't do keep you from doing what you can when it comes to the Father. So
you want to start in 14 or before that? Where do you want to start?
You know what? I actually, why don't we start beginning at 1, because that's another key thing. People think, you know, we do have to realize that when we're reading the Bible and they say the first month, we think January, but we're thinking Gregorian calendar. And the Hebrew calendar is not the same. So when you read like the 7th month, everybody thinks that is August. No, I'm sorry, July. Everybody thinks that's July, but the 7th month is where a lot of biblical feasts take place, and it's actually in the fall. It's in like September to October. So we'll just start. You want to start in 12:1 and then just read on through to where did we want to go to?
20?
Yeah, that works. That's a good one.
Yeah. Okay. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall be for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Tell all the congregation of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, every man shall take a lamb according to his father's house, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for a lamb, then he and his nearest neighbor shall take according to the number of persons, according to what each can eat. You shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male, a year old. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of this month, when the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill their lamb at twilight. Then they take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the flesh that night, roasted on the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and they shall eat it. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roasted, its head with its legs and its inner parts. You shall not, oh my goodness, and you shall let none of it remain until the morning. Anything that remains until the morning you shall burn. In this manner you shall eat it, with your belt fastened, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike all of the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be for you a memorial day, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. As a statute forever, you shall keep it as a feast. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day, you shall remove leaven out of your houses. For if anyone eats what is leavened from the first day until the seventh day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. On the first day, you shall hold a holy assembly, and on the seventh day, a holy assembly. No work shall be done on those days, but what everyone needs to eat, that alone may be prepared for you. And you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for on this day I brought your hosts out of the land of Egypt. Therefore, you shall observe this day without your generation as a statute forever. In the first month, from the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. For 7 days, no leaven is to be found in your houses. If anyone eats what is leavened, that person will be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he is a sojourner or a native of the land. You shall eat nothing leavened. In all your dwelling places, you shall eat unleavened bread. All right. That was long.
It was long, but it was so good. And I noticed, another thing I wanted to tell you, one of the things that we do it, and I know a lot of other people do it. We actually take like a red sheet and we drape it over our front door frame. Mm-hmm. And I saw a couple years ago, I saw a lot of believers starting to do that, but they weren't keeping Passover. They were just doing that, which is great.
Right.
And I think that's, and I wonder if that was
step.
maybe a first step. So if you started doing that, so maybe if you're one of those believers, there was like this huge group, like over 300,000, I think, in this group that were doing that. So if you're one of those believers who did that a couple years ago, let's go ahead and take it the next step and actually keep the Passover, because it's so easy to do. So Elisa, tell us, first of all, let me explain. I'm going to explain one thing to y'all, and I'm going to explain this because it took Elisa 2 years to get me to understand this. Okay. So Passover is a meal that you start eating. Like this year for us, the Passover is Friday, April 16th. This is 2022. So on the calendar that we use, the Passover meal is Friday, April 16th. So we will eat that meal. That's a Passover meal. And we eat it with unleavened bread, because as the sun sets, the Feast of Unleavened Bread begins. And that is a 7-day feast. So we tend to collectively call this whole week Passover. But Passover is actually the meal you eat that leads into the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And it took Elisa 2 years to get me to understand that. So
you did that perfectly.
Thank you. I'm shocked.
It was so clear. It was so good. You did that great.
So let me tell them the one thing. Elisa taught me another thing this year. And you said you saw this last year. I was
like,
right?
What did I teach you? Yes, I saw this last year.
You know what? Your friends should always be teaching you things. You should be teaching. We should all be learning from one another. And I learn constantly from my friends. And I'm so grateful that the Father's put people like this in my life. So I was telling Elisa, and I'm going to let you give it away here, but I was telling her how I have all these organized friends on Facebook because they're already cleaning the leavening out of their house. And it's a couple weeks away and they're already cleaning their house and everything. And I was feeling bad because I wasn't really feeling bad. I just accepted I'm never going to be that organized. And so Elisa said something that just made my mind explode because I've read it, but I've never seen it before.
Okay. So let's look at Exodus 12, verse 15. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall remove leaven out of your houses. On the first day. So I used to spend weeks trying to get all the leaven out of my house. I would start a minimum of 4 weeks and I would start cleaning out the pantry and all of these things. And I would put it all in a basket so that everybody knew to eat this stuff first so that it would be out and we wouldn't waste anything. And, but right here in scripture last year, I was like, look at this on the first day.
And see, here I was thinking I was being, because that's actually what we did last year. And I thought I was just waiting till the last minute. I'm actually being biblical. See, this is where not being organized like you helps bring me closer to the Father. So I'm just biblical, y'all.
I just want to point out that you didn't know it till it told you. So
Well, isn't that great though? Because I was already
you didn't
doing
know.
it. My heart was already following him,
Your
not
heart
even
was
knowing.
already following.
By the way,
Yeah.
y'all, I'm actually not wearing gray this week. I'm wearing my Passover 2022 shirt. So what? This is it. I just uploaded this design without a date on it because some people don't want the date. I
You
like
should have
having
bought one of those.
Well,
Then
you
we
still
could
got
have,
time.
we could have recorded
Oh, we can't
this,
wear it. Yeah, you should
but
have, but
I didn't
that's
have enough
okay.
time.
I like having the date on mine because I really enjoy like next year or 10 years from now, I'll be like, oh, I was keeping Passover in 2022. You know, it's just neat. I have a t-shirt with a date from the first year we ever kept Sukkot. And I just love that shirt. It's a reminder, you know. So that was something we learned that this year we learned that you clean out the leavening the day
Right.
of or the day of the day before. I guess it would be the day you eat your Passover meal.
Well, that's not the first day.
So what would that be? The next day?
Yeah, because remember, you're eating the meal, you start it before the first day and it blends into the first day, right? So
Yeah, so we're gonna
somewhere
eat
on
it.
that first day, you would be cleaning it out.
So the first day begins at sunset by how we do the
Right.
calendar. So we could actually do that evening
Right. But
after Patty and her kids go home. We can
yes.
clean everything out.
But many people, we're so worried about messing up that we start so early. At least that was me. I was so worried about crossing that line and making sure that it was all out, so here it's the first day. It's the first day. I just think that's amazing.
I know. I love that. I think that just makes me feel even more made in his image because of how unorganized I am. I'm going to stop saying it unorganized. Whenever I'm unorganized, I'm going to say I'm either doing it biblically or relying on the Father.
Right.
That's why I don't organize things and sort things because I rely on the Father to help me find things when I
Well,
need
I
them.
do just want to point out that every year before Passover, you and Ricky sit down and you read the scriptures and you talk about what you did last year or in the previous years so that you can plan for the next one. That is not unorganized.
Okay. Maybe I'm not as bad as I think. But we do. And so the scriptures also tell us, like, when it talks about having bitter herbs, that's part of it too. So for
Yes.
our bitter herbs, I make a dark green salad with like dark spring greens, and you can chop up a little parsley and stuff in it. And this is a good time for you to talk about, because Elise is really good at this, why we can't keep Passover perfectly.
Okay. So the Bible gives us specific things that we have to do, right? We even read some of these things about bringing in the lamb, about going to the temple and basically they placed an order for their lamb. And if they didn't have, I think the number is 13, but don't quote me on that. I think it was 13 people for a lamb, and you would go place your order for that lamb, and then you would take it home and you would roast it and all of these things. Okay. So this is the prescribed way that we're supposed to do it. We cannot do these things at this time. We do not have a temple. We do not have the Levitical priesthood. We are not in the land. And so because of these things, we are unable to truly do Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. But we can do it in memorial. We do it knowing that someday we will be able to do it for real. And in the meantime, we're kind of rehearsing for that day. We're practicing, and And there's also in scripture where it says there are certain people who cannot eat of the Passover if they don't meet certain requirements. And at this time, that is not something that we can follow, because again, we don't have the temple and we don't have the Levitical priests. So right now is a prime opportunity for this to be a teaching tool and a fun thing for everybody to gather and do.
And kind of in memorial and a rehearsal.
Yes,
when Messiah
in
returns.
memorial. Yes, exactly.
And I want to jump in here. If you're a Christian who has never kept Passover, and some bells might be going off like, oh, does this, but Jesus is our Passover lamb. So doing this, was that not dishonoring that? Actually, this honors our Messiah. This is something the Father set into place, which does honor our Messiah. He is our Passover lamb. And so this is the Father's way of honoring what Messiah did.
Absolutely.
So biblically, this is how we honor him. This is a way that we do that. So don't think that it might be leading you away from Messiah or taking the spotlight off of Messiah. Biblically, according to the Father's way, this is how we shine that spotlight on Messiah, and this is how we honor what he did for us.
Exactly.
So, yeah, this is what they were doing. There's actually, and we see Yeshua and the apostles keeping the Passover in the Newer Testament. We see them doing this. There is one place in the Bible where the original word was Passover or Pesach, and it was translated differently. It wasn't translated to Passover. And so that leads people to believe that the apostles were keeping another holiday. But if you go back and look at the original translation, I think there's only one translation. I think it's the King James that doesn't translate it as Passover. They translate it as a different holiday. But if you look at the original text in the Greek, it's Passover, or Pesach is what was in there originally.
Right.
So.
I also like to think about the fact that every year of Yeshua's life, he was doing this. They were celebrating Passover every year. And I think that's kind of exciting to think about the fact that you're sitting down and you're having this meal, and he was doing that as well. So that's kind of special.
Whoever claims to abide in him ought to walk as he walked.
Exactly.
He's our ultimate example, and he's the one who lived it out perfectly. So we say that he's our example. We say that he's the example of how we are to walk out the Father's ways and how to live it out. So walk as he walked. I think that's 1 John 2:6. Walk as he walked. So why do we want to do this? Well, Messiah did it. I got two reasons. Number one, the Father says to, and number two, Messiah did it. That's all I need.
Yes.
So that is important. When we talk about, let's see, where did we want to go next with this? We're trying to kind of give you a lot of information, but not too much information.
Well, we might want to talk about the leaven. Oh,
okay. Elisa has a great insight on this as well. This is going to be me talking about Elisa this, Elisa that, the whole show.
We can just talk about what we remove from our houses first, and then we can talk about what these things represent. If that works for you.
There are different views on this, and I think Elisa and I have been through every one of them. The first year I kept Passover, we removed any product that listed yeast, baking soda, or baking powder in the ingredients. I removed anything out of my house because I have a home economics degree. And what do we call baking soda and baking powder? Leavening agents. And so I removed anything that had baking soda and baking powder out of my house. I removed all baking soda and baking powder and yeast. I got every bit of it out of my house. There's different ways that people dispose of this. Some people donate it. Some people give it to people who are not keeping Passover. Some people throw it away. Most people, understandably, and I think we all fall in this camp to a certain degree, try to use it up leading to Passover. And we're not going to go into which way you should do. Look into it, pray, seek it out with the Father, and you will probably do like us and do it a little differently every year as you continue to grow and learn.
Right. It's been a big journey.
It is
So,
definitely a journey. And some people see it now. I'm coming around to a different view of this. Last year, if it had like last year, I ended up just removing the things that had yeast in it. Now, obviously, if there's any baked goods and stuff, that have yeast in it, we're going to get rid of those. Last year, I mainly just removed the things that had yeast in it because I realized that in this time, what the Bible is referring to as leavening, that was the yeast, that was the starter and stuff. Now, Elisa, you have an even more in-depth view of this. First of all, I need y'all to know, if anybody tells you there is one way to do this and you should just do it how they do it, please be mindful of following people
right.
in place of following the Father. There's no shortcut. You have to read the Bible for yourself. You have to test it out with the Father, because you're not going to give an account for how Christy kept Passover.
Right.
You're not going to give an account for how Lisa kept Passover. You have to take what you know and do the best you can with what you know. Once you know better, you do better. So we're not authorities on this. The Father's the authority. Seek his word and go from there. But we are going to talk about some of the different views on what constitutes leavening.
Right. I think that there are long lists out there of things like beverages and even some cheeses, I think, and things like that people remove. But I like to go back and think about what it is that they had. And what they had was essentially a sourdough starter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have yeast everywhere, right? There's yeast in the air that we breathe. It's everywhere. And so while yeast is a leavening agent, it is not, in my opinion, the actual leaven. It is the catalyst that is used to leaven something. In other words, yeast by itself does not leaven a product. It needs water and food. And once it has water and it has food, then it starts this fermentation process that puts air into the product and it leavens it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeast isn't the leaven, it's the agent that helps produce it. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yes.
So something like a yeast extract, many people remove things that have yeast extract, and yeast extract is just a byproduct. It doesn't leaven anything.
So we have this sprinkly stuff called nutritional yeast. Right. That we sprinkle on things for seasoning and stuff. And it's like a seasoning. Yeah.
Yes. It's not, you don't have to remove that, in my opinion. So when I remove things from my house, it's a little simpler, I think. I remove things that have been leavened. So I would not remove a box of cake mix, but I would definitely remove a cake that had been baked, because the cake has had the yeast activated, right? But the box just has inactive yeast. That yeast, in order to leaven, needs the water and the food, sugar. I would not remove a box of bread mix, but I would remove all of the bread. I would not remove yeast from my pantry because
the dry granular.
Yeah. Right. Because it's not leavened. It's inactive. So that's how I view it. And I get it. It's very different from what other people consider to be leaven.
And it's okay if, like, honestly, I will tell you, the first year we kept Passover, it was easy to just go through the pantry and anything that had yeast or bacon, I just got it out. It was easy. I got rid of cake mix, muffin mix, all those kind of things. And that was just easy. And it was more kind of erring on the side of caution. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with
Nope,
that.
there's not.
And you'll probably
Our
do it a
first
little differently every year,
Oh, yes. So our first year, we removed all of that stuff and we put it in a tote and we stuck it in the back on the back patio because I don't know, that's just how we did it,
Mhm.
and we probably did that for a couple of years until the next revelation came about, how this might work. So it's been a very long process for
Yeah. The
us,
first
but
year
this
we
is
put
where we're
everything
at.
in a storage tote in the garage.
Yeah.
And this year we're going to do it differently. And we're still talking about it. We're still deciding how we're going to do it. And nobody email and be like, how are you going to do it this year? Because we're not the standard. He
Right.
is. So you have to seek
Right.
it out for yourself. There's no shortcuts. And I just want you to know that this is a learning process. And every year in the fellowship group, I ask people, and I'm probably going to do this week. I ask people, if you're keeping Passover this year, let us know below so that we can pray for you. And if you're keeping it for the first time, let us know that as well. And I write out this huge list, and we have the entire fellowship group praying for everyone who's keeping Passover that year. And, it's a way to honor the Father, and we're seeking to honor him. We're seeking his heart. We do the best we can with what we know, and he
Right.
fills in the gaps. He stands in
Exactly.
and fills in the gaps for us. So don't feel like you have to know how to do everything perfectly. We're trying to kind of show you that this is our knowledge about how to keep Passover is evolving through the years, and
Right.
so expect yours to do so as well.
Mm.
Um,
Oh,
so
can I just say, if
you can
you
say anything you want.
if you live in a house with people who do not celebrate Passover or don't want to, they don't
Mhm.
want to get out the leaven, but you do, there are lots of different ways to handle it. You could put it all in a cabinet so that they could get to it, but it's all contained. Or you could just remove the things for yourself and allow them to have their things. You know, there are so many people out there that are just in different situations and they do the best that they can.
Mhm.
And I think that that's really important. Don't feel like you have to do it for the people who are there, you know.
And also, that's a good point. If you're keeping Passover for the first time this year, chances are you're surrounded by a lot of people who don't think you should keep Passover. They've never read
Right.
that, or they have a different understanding. They've been taught differently. And you might even have some people be harsh to you because you're obeying the Father, because they don't understand that that's what this is. Don't judge, criticize, or condemn them.
Right.
um People are doing the best they can with what they know, and focus on the fact that you are seeking to honor the Father. Focus on that. If you decide to use Passover instead of the focus being on honoring him and walking in the way of our Messiah, if you instead choose to use Passover to judge, critique, or condemn your brothers or sisters who do not understand where you're at right now in the faith, or maybe haven't read it for themselves, or maybe the Father hasn't revealed this to them yet, that's not honoring the Father. That's actually dishonoring the Father. We need to be doing these things in love,
Right.
and we need to be walking it out in love for our neighbor and our fellow brethren. And if you keep Passover with love in your heart for your neighbors, love and compassion,
Hmm.
they don't know what the Father has shown you right now, and you're kind and you're gentle, that keeps you a place where people can come and they can ask questions, and they know that the
Right.
questions are not going to be answered with condemning statements or harshness. It's just going to be, you ask me a question about Passover, and why are you keeping Passover? Well, because the Father said to do it. I started reading the word and he says to do it, and I saw that our Messiah kept it as well, and so I wanted to honor him in this way. Isn't that a neat
Right.
answer? But I've seen other people answer this with very harsh and condemning statements that are very unkind and lack understanding for our brothers and sisters. Um, you know, in most cases, they are where we were 5 spiritual minutes ago. And we have not risen to such a lofty place that we are now
Right.
able to issue judgment and condemnation or edicts about the salvation of others. So I really want to caution against that. Be kind, do it in love, and set your heart's focus on honoring the Father, not
Yes.
condemning others.
Right.
That's key, I think.
I agree.
So
Absolutely.
there's a bunch of different ways to keep Passover. The key is to go back to what the verse says, and see what all we can do. Like Elisa said, there's a lot of things we can't do. So we're not going to keep this perfectly. With that in mind, some people even feel that because we can't go through the entire steps with the lamb, that Elisa was saying she knows some people who actually feel it's wrong to eat lamb because we can't do it
Right.
perfectly.
Right. Yeah. There's lots of different ideas. Some people think that you absolutely should have lamb. And other people think that you absolutely shouldn't have lamb. We have had lamb, we have had brisket, we have had turkey, we have had chicken. So
We tend to have a big beef roast. What I'm planning on doing this year, and I knew someone who did this last year and I thought it was brilliant. I'm going to go to, we have a little Greek restaurant, and I'm going to go buy like a single entree of lamb and just kind of cut it up and put a little bit on everybody's plate. I don't like lamb. So we will have a big beef roast. Everybody have a little bit of lamb. And then we'll have like, cream corn, mashed potatoes, unleavened
I
bread,
think
that whole thing.
that's a great idea. Soak it in milk.
Soak it in milk.
Yeah,
Does that
it'll
make
take
it
that
better?
gaminess out.
Oh, I was gonna
It
say,
won't
now
taste so
you're getting
gamey.
into, some people believe that, and it's not biblical,
Oh,
but some
this
people
is
believe you shouldn't have meat and milk together. But that's
oh,
not
that's
biblical. Let
not
me give
it.
you the big example. So when the Father appeared to Abraham, he made basically beef and cheese. He served him beef and dairy together.
I
So
I didn't mean to send you off on that
I
tangent.
know, I was thinking, where is
I
she
was just
going with this?
saying it'll take the gaminess out.
I've also got a big paper I wrote on the whole don't boil a goat in its mother's milk. So we obviously we have beef and cheese together. It's not an issue for us. If the Father can eat beef and cheese together, we can too.
I agree.
So but don't, like, basically our Passover is really simple. Family gets together, we have unleavened bread, we have a big family meal.
Yep.
And we read the story in Exodus. We read that and we talk about it, and we talk about the Passover. We just have this whole big family conversation about it around the table, and we make sure the kids know. And then we do spend a big portion of the meal talking about all the things that the Father has done for us. I don't think we talk about that enough. And we should
I
be
agree.
retelling and passing down these stories to our kids of all the things that the Father has done for us. So Passover is just a very meaningful family meal for us, where we tell the story of the Passover. And then following that, we have the week of unleavened bread, and we make all these special unleavened bread recipes every day.
Yep.
And it's just really special for us. But you can also have a formal Passover if you want.
Absolutely.
And you can do the Seder. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's just a lot of communities have Seders that you can actually join in on. And people
They
really enjoy doing
do.
that.
Our very first one was at a Christian church. They were having a Seder, and I thought that was so wonderful. And so we went, and I didn't understand all of the symbolism, but I enjoyed it, and then we went from there. So
yeah, and I think more and more churches are doing this now. Chances
I think
are,
so too.
if you want to take part in a traditional Seder, you can probably find one in your area.
Absolutely.
But if not, don't feel like your Passover is going to be any less meaningful if you decide to have a family dinner with just you and your husband, or you and your husband and your kids, or maybe you and a friend, or you and your mom.
Right.
Just have a family dinner and read the story of the Exodus. Eat bitter herbs, talk about what he's done for you. That's keeping Passover just as much as well.
Yes,
Um,
I
we
agree.
also like to talk about Jesus, about Yeshua,
Mhm.
our Messiah, and how he is our Passover lamb. And
Yep.
I think about when he kept Passover, and then also when we're going to be able to keep it with him in the future. We're going to
Mhm.
be keeping when we read in the Word, the Father instated these appointed times with him, these holy times, forever. And we read in the Word and we see that we're going to be keeping them when Messiah returns.
And
So,
you can see that in Ezekiel.
mhm.
You can read Ezekiel and it'll talk about all of
And
those
the
things.
apostles, the disciples, they kept these feasts long after Messiah had ascended. That's another example for us.
Right.
And so when Messiah comes back and we're supposed to start keeping the Passover, I don't want to be like, wait a minute, what is this? How do we do this? I want to be all practiced up.
Yep.
So
Yep.
and I don't ever, when it comes to honoring our Father and our Messiah, I don't ever want to let what I can't do keep me from doing what I can.
Right.
I think that's very important.
It
So
is.
we want to encourage you to keep the Passover this year. It can be
Absolutely.
simple, it can be elaborate. You can do this. And it's a great way to honor the Father. And he says, a lot of us, I spent my life thinking the Passover was something that our Jewish brethren did. It was a Jewish feast. But then I read the Bible and he says they're his feast. He always calls them his feast. And therefore, the native born and the sojourner who lives among you. So this is definitely something that we can do. And I will tell you that I've learned a lot about the Father through keeping Passover. It's funny because the first year, Lisa, I know you had to have done this because I don't know any believer who hasn't done this. We think we've got all the leavening out of our house. And then
Oh my
during that
gosh.
week, you find it everywhere. You will open a cabinet.
Yes.
I didn't know this was here. You find it all over the place. And it really teaches you a lot about how you think you have your life in order. You think you're following him wholeheartedly, and you keep
Yep.
finding all these little things, all these little
Yep.
things. So, my first time keeping Passover, and Elisa has a deeper understanding of this, but I'm going to start with understanding where I was at because I think we all start here. And this is a valid understanding as well. But I like how she went deeper with it. It taught me a lot more. Um, the leavening at Passover represents the sin in our lives. A little sin can grow and it becomes more and more and more. And, if you decide to, oh, well, I'll just break this commandment, I'll just do this and I won't do it again, it's a slippery slope. And so you start a little here and it just grows and grows, very much like leavening. Now, at all places in the Bible, leavening does not always represent sin, but in the Passover, it does. So you think you've got all the leavening out of your house, you think you've got all the sin out of your life, and then you open up a cabinet and you see a little there. And then you're digging in your pantry and you happen on a little there that you forgot was there. It was maybe hidden in the back corner. And this really represents our lives when we start following him. And he will slowly reveal everything to us that we need to work on, that he's going to burn away. And that in that refiner's fire, as he refines us and draws us closer to him and cleans up our lives and helps us to follow his ways over our own and learn to trust his judgment of our own. Now, Elisa and I were talking last week, I think, and she shared something about another thing that she feels that leavening represents at Passover. And I'm absolutely on board with this. And I think it was so wise. And I think most of you watching this are going to be as amazed and blown away as I was.
Well, let's start with scripture. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's read Matthew 13:33. He spoke another parable to them. The kingdom of heaven is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 pecks of flour until it was all leavened. So if we read this, we have to ask ourselves, if leaven is sin, then is the kingdom of heaven like sin? So then we can look at
I nodded
Matthew
my head
6.
there. Sorry. Absolutely not. I was naturally just kind of,
I know you were just listening. So Matthew 16:6 says, and Jesus said to them, watch out and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So right here, we have two types of leaven, right? We have the leaven of heaven and we have the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So I kind of see leaven as doctrine, the doctrine of men and the doctrine of the Father. And so when it talks about getting out all of the leaven in our houses, I kind of see it as we're cleaning out the old doctrine, the doctrine of men, and we are starting new with the doctrine of the Father. And if we go to 1 Corinthians 5:7, it reads, clean out the old leaven so that you may be a new lump, just as you are in fact unleavened. For Christ, our Passover, also has been sacrificed. Therefore, let us celebrate the feast, not with the old leaven, nor with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. So,
wow, that's just, I mean, that is just, that to me, that just makes my heart rejoice all the more, because I really feel like this is what, when you read the Bible for yourself and you learn about Passover, and then, it's not just about reading the word and knowing the word, it's about actually doing it. And then you implement the Father's instructions in your life. This is what you're doing. You're saying, okay, I had knowledge that wasn't correct. Now I have access to the Father's knowledge. And this I know is truth. And so I'm going to clean out the things that have proven untrue. And I'm going to cling to his truth and start walking in that truth. And that's what Passover is all about. Freeing ourselves from the bondage of the world to walk in the freedom of our Father's wisdom. That's just amazing.
I am by no means saying that leaven does not represent sin. I think
it's
that
context.
Definitely clean out the sin from our lives. But we do have to realize that there is a leaven of heaven and a leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. And I think that is a deeper thought.
Yeah. And equating it to doctrine really makes a lot of sense. And it helps us to kind of understand that. So to me, that, we've been keeping Passover for 5 or 6 years now. And this just, it's like you have all these puzzle pieces as you read through the word. So this year I've got a new puzzle piece, and the picture makes so much more sense to me now. And Passover is even more meaningful to me now. Even more, you get excited about the word, you get excited about the wisdom of the Father, and he just continually lavishes more and more gifts of his wisdom on you. And I'm so excited this year. I'm so excited with this additional understanding now. I had to show you one more thing, Elisa.
Okay.
So I don't know. It depends on where y'all live. Now, I live in Alabama. So if this happens in Alabama, it probably happens where you are. Grocery stores start putting special things out just for Passover. Go look in your grocery store section. Like, I found this at the Publix section of my grocery store. The Publix section. Publix is the grocery store. I found it in the kosher section. That's where you usually get the matzah and stuff.
I
wish they made extra salted matzah. Does anybody know where you can get extra salty matzah? But they come up with special desserts for Passover because you're not eating cakes and things. So I love chocolate covered marshmallows, and you can't really get those anymore because most marshmallows have pork in them. So I get the kosher marshmallows because they don't have pork in them. This, oh my goodness, I got these the other day. I found they're on Amazon for like $15, but I think I paid like $4 or $5 for this box. And it's missing one.
Oh, you should take that back and get another one.
Well, me and Katie,
and you shouldn't eat them. You shouldn't eat them if they've,
I have to show y'all this. So I thought this is
It
not going to be
looks so
good. This
good.
is going to be stale or something, because usually the marshmallows and things like this. Okay. This is actually soft. It's kind of like a cross between marshmallow cream and a marshmallow.
Wow.
I know,
It
right?
looks so good. I'm not
You can't
sure
have this,
that
so I'm going to eat it for you. You're welcome.
I appreciate that. You're such a good friend to me for eating those things for me.
It's so good. It is so soft. And now everybody's going to be, I hope you're looking for these. These are amazing. This is the first year I found these, but I'm going to go this evening and buy more. And they come from Brooklyn. Oh my goodness, it's so good.
I'll have to
A
look.
fluffy marshmallow center with a smooth dark chocolate coating. Oh,
I
they're
love
so
dark
good.
chocolate.
They're so good. So you can find all kinds of fun treats. They even have, I don't know the brand, but they have Passover coffee cake mixes, Passover apple cake mixes.
I made one of those last year, the coffee cake, and I think it's a chocolate vanilla swirl. And
I did the apple one, the apple cake.
They were good.
Aren't you grateful?
I'm so very something. I am grateful for you sharing that with us.
So, oh, that's so good. If y'all find any cool Passover treats in the store, be sure you let us know. But you'll be surprised at what you find. Like even last year, my Walmart had this whole setup of things for Passover, and my Walmart never has anything like that. So look around. Also, there are different calendars. People keep Passover at different times because there's different calendars that people go by. Quick word about that. We don't know which calendar is the perfect calendar. If anybody tells you they do, ignore them. I say that in love. We will know the perfect calendar when Messiah returns. Until then, do a little research, pick the calendar that you feel works best for you, or you feel is the best calendar for you to go by. Prayerfully talk it out with the Father. The Father has led us for multiple reasons to keep the same calendar that our Jewish brethren keep. So if you want to know when we keep Passover, Google Passover and whatever year it is when you're watching this, and that's the date. For us, it's 2022. The Passover meal is going to be eaten on April 16th. That's a Friday evening. And then we'll have the 7-day unleavened bread after that.
But you know, for us, we keep a different calendar. And for us, Passover is the 14th, Wednesday, the 14th. But Christy and I have never had a problem with this. If we live next door to each other, she would probably be eating Passover with me on the 14th, and I would be eating Passover with her on the 16th.
Definitely. And that I wanted to explain that because you may see people like keeping Passover a week before you or a week after you, and you're thinking, why are they doing this? This doesn't make sense. I wanted to explain that people keep it at different times. And for me, I enjoy people keeping Passover. See, even if after I have kept it, if I see people keeping it, it just brings to mind a precious memory. And I'm just like, oh, more people keeping the Father's feast. And I enjoy seeing that. It's never a point of contention or something to argue for me. This is something we're seeking to honor the Father, and arguing over things like this or seeking to be right rather than what is right is something I really try to avoid. So I'm never going to argue with someone who is setting their heart to honor the Father and keep his feast as he's prescribed. I'm just going to encourage them. So if you've got anybody who's celebrate
the fact that they are doing it.
Absolutely. And we've got more brethren coming along. And the more you surround yourself with people who are seeking to honor the Father with their whole heart, the more it's going to strengthen and encourage you as well. So it's important to do. Anyway, I hope this was somewhat helpful. We tried to do kind of a brief overview and then go into some of the details. It's okay to still have questions and to still be a little nervous and maybe a little intimidated and want to make sure you get it right. But I just want to encourage you that you don't have to do it perfectly. When When a child learns to walk, they take the first step and they fall down. And as a parent, you don't say, well, you'll never do that, right? You say, good
Right.
job, keep going, try again. Okay. So we're seeking to honor the Father, take the first steps, do it the best you can this year. You're going to get better every single year. Don't feel like it has to be perfect.
Absolutely.
And don't let yourself be intimidated to the point that you don't try.
Right.
Try.
Right.
It is a great way to honor him by obeying his commands. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. So we need to talk about everybody like and subscribe.
If you like this video, like and subscribe. Also, we need to say that when we're going to do these videos, we have never had a plan to do these on a set time frame. And so what Elisa and I do is when we feel like the Father has put something on us we need to talk about, we do a video.
Right.
So we have a list right now of like 2 other videos that we were planning on doing before this one. And then we talked on, was it Thursday or Friday?
Yeah.
And
no,
we're like,
Thursday.
Hey,
yeah.
Thursday, we need to do a Passover video. And then once we realized we felt like that's what the Father wanted us to do, immediately it just started kind of making itself. So hopefully this will encourage you. If you are in the Facebook group, if you're in the discussion group, there will be a pinned Passover post with a link to all my Passover stuff and also where you can leave your name so that we can add you to the Passover prayer list. That's only for the discussion group if you're in there. If you're not in the discussion group, you can visit seekingscripture.com/Passover to find a link to every Passover resource I have. And these will probably be growing some every year because we're going to keep learning every year.
Right.
So
are we going to be putting maybe some menu plans?
I do have in my Passover post, I do have a menu plan. And it's actually the menu plan I'm using this year too.
Okay.
So
well, I will share my menu plan.
Okay. Perfect.
In the YouTube?
Yeah, in the YouTube comments. I think Elisa will share in the YouTube
comments.
comments. So y'all visit this video over there and she will share hers there. And if y'all want to share any your menu plan and stuff, be sure to add it in the YouTube comments. You're welcome to do that. My menu plan will have some links to a website called Southern Plate. That is my former life. I'm retired from Southern Plate now, but a lot of y'all came to know me and follow me through Southern Plate. And so I sold that website about almost 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago now. And now I do Bible study full time because the Father has made a way. So I'm so grateful for that. So if y'all click on it, you're like, what is this food blog? That used to be Christy back in the day. So we hope this has been helpful. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We're going to have more of these as the Father leads, and we'll see you soon. Elisa, say bye. Bye, y'all. Be sure you leave us a comment below, like and subscribe, and let us know if there's anything you'd like us to talk about in future NeuroPath videos. Love y'all. Bye-bye.
Love you.
I just ain't got nothing to say that. I ain't got nothing to say that. This is proof that I'm a wise person because I'm so slow to offense. Because I know that you don't understand that my singing is a blessing. It's a blessing.
Can we talk to Donna about that?
I don't think Donna hears it right. I don't think Donna is hearing it right.
Oh,
okay. She says it hurts her ears. So I don't think her ears are hearing that.
That message you left me this morning, it was really good. It was such a blessing right until the end. And that's where the word caterwauling kind of
What did I do at the end?
You did some caterwauling.
Let me see.
Let me
I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it.
Okay.
We're going to see what I did
Okay.
because I don't
I was
remember what
gonna
I
play it.
did. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Oh, wait. It
Here.
played it in my ear. Knew it.
Oh.
Okay, you try
Well,
playing it. See if
I
it'll
can
play
do
in your
it.
ear. Oh, wait.
Wait,
I
what?
done messed up my. Why is my computer? Just a second. Connect. Okay, it didn't do right. You try playing it because it played it in my ear. Can you hear me?
Can you hear it?
Can you hear me, Elisa?
Yes.
I can't hear you. Let me
So
just
you
see.
can't-
Let me cycle my Bluetooth here.
Oh, can you hear me?
Okay. Okay, now I hear you. Now I
So
hear you. Okay. You see if you can play
Can
it
you hear
because
it?
I can't play it. Oh.
That's how it should be. To live without you would only mean heartbreak for me.
Caterwauling.
That was good though. I mean, that was like I drew it out.
It was amazing, and it was amazing, and I felt very loved and cherished, and
Rightfully
I'm
so.
never gonna play it for my husband because it's a little weird, but Christy serenaded me this morning, honey.
I serenade you like a couple mornings a week at least.
I know.
At least. But you know, that comes from when I was little. My mom never just woke us up. Like when we were little, you know, your age where your mom's actually waking up in the morning. You'd be dead asleep, pitch black. All of a sudden your door would fling open, slam against the wall. The light would come on and she would be like this, and she would start singing in this loud voice.
Oh my gosh.
Every morning. That's how I got woke up. And so it's just what you do. It's just what you do. So yeah.
Alrighty then.
You have to sing to people in the morning.
Nobody ever sang to me. It was either my alarm or my dad waking me up. Now, he didn't like yell or anything. He just opened the door and said, "Hey, it's time to get up." And I would say, "Okay."
I cannot wrap my head around not being sung to in the morning. Like, it just doesn't happen. Mama did it every morning that she ever woke me up my entire life. No, and even now, if I call her in the morning, she'll answer and she'll start singing that song immediately. She has a good morning song, and she will answer, and she won't even say hello. She just picks up the phone. Good morning, good. It's like, okay, that's what we do.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. We're a musical family, and I truly believe that we should all just break out into spontaneous song more often. I have a bad habit of walking through the grocery store, not realizing I'm singing. My sister does that too. We've commiserated about this together. So apparently it's something that we've inherited.
I do not do that. However, I do have to be careful not to talk to myself in the grocery store because I talk all the time, whether there's anybody around or not.
So the good thing is, as we're getting older, Elisa, this is going to actually start working to our benefit. It will ward off people. Hopefully it's already doing that. It will ward off people and they will be like, ooh, that woman's crazy.
Yeah, they'll be putting us in a home a whole lot sooner.
But imagine if they put us in a home together. We'd have to get Donna in there too. We'd have to have Donna in there. Yes. I don't think we could have any peace unless Donna McDaniel was in there with us, because she's going to be the one loving and kind of running interference for us. She'll be loving on everybody, seeing how they're doing and everything. Meanwhile, we could just be walking down the hall by ourselves, singing, teaching ourselves.
We might need melody too.
Oh yeah. See, I'm spinning. We will definitely need Mel. Yeah, Mel,
Right.
Mel and Donna would be a great team.
I agree.
They're so social.
I
So
agree.
social.
And then we could do 2 shows. We could do this show, even from the home, and then we could do another show.
Which
It would
is
be them talking with us interrupting.
no, I was gonna say we let them do their own show and let them
Uh-huh.
talk and stuff, and then me and you can be like behind them, cracking jokes and eating snacks.
Right.
That would be fun. All right. So we fixing to get going.
All right.